2021 tax season is here, and to help us through it is Caitlynn Eldridge. Caitlynn is a mom of four, a military spouse, and an avid reader and podcast listener. She's been working as a CPA for nearly a decade now. In 2018, she formed her own CPA firm to help entrepreneurs like you and I, and more specifically 6 and 7 figure business owners. Hit the like button below if you are ready to get some amazing tax advice from Caitlynn. And if you're ready, I'm ready.
Awesome. Welcome to another episode of Ask the Experts on our Holistic Time Coach YouTube channel. Today I have Caitlynn Eldridge, who is a CPA and tax expert for entrepreneurs, online business owners, and I am so excited for this interview because it is tax season. It's getting really close to April. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about your story, who you are, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so as you said, my name's Caitlynn. I have been a CPA for coming up on 11 years now. I keep having to do the math, which just means I graduated a long time ago. But I started my career out the traditional way. I worked at the big four firms. I moved into like a big company. And along the way, I married my high school sweetheart, who is Air Force. And so his schedule was insane. Every time I had a busy season, he'd be home. And anytime I wasn't in busy season, he was deployed. And so I kind of found that like we weren't really getting to spend time together. And then we added kids to the mix. And suddenly the corporate world was no longer mixing with my profession and what I wanted to do and be a present mom at home and be there for all the crazy deployments. So after we had our twins and I realized that I'd be spending more time with sick kids than in the office, I put in my resignation and I decided I'd go on to open my own firm. Started a little bit slow, kind of testing the waters because I thought we were going to be PCSing and moving to England. And so I didn't want to like overcommit myself. Suddenly my husband came home. He's like, by the way, we're going to Mississippi. I was like, not England, not anywhere close to England, not anywhere close to like this dream.
Very different.
Right. I was like, we're going to go travel Europe. There's not going to be time to work. I'm going to be so busy planning our vacations. It's going to be great. And then he said, we're moving to Mississippi. I was like, well, guess I have time to work. And I want to work. And we are in a very small town in Mississippi. So there was nothing nearby. And so I decided at that point, online CPA services was the best way to do this because then we could move and I could take my clients with me. I find once you build that relationship, it's so frustrating and hard to break it. So I really wanted to protect it. And so I went after and got into the online atmosphere because I knew that they'd be comfortable working online, working through Zoom video calls, working through portals, as opposed to having to like show up with your documents and hand them to your tax preparer. So the more I dug in, the more I found that the industry itself was just booming, but that everyone was kind of really open to this concept of like, wait, I don't have to schedule an appointment. I don't have to be available between 8 to 5. So it worked well for my life and it worked well for my client's life. And from there, it's just been growing. And then we added one more kid to the mix. So now we're a family of 6 in tax season and COVID. And it's just been crazy, but it's been good.
Yeah, I'm glad that you've kept safe. And I lived in New Orleans. I know we've just met, but I lived in New Orleans, which is not super far from Mississippi at all. I was there a couple of times, for retreats and things like that. But the South is a wonderful, weird place to be.
It is. That was actually our trip. We had one in April of last year. We were going to go to New Orleans, and that was the first one we had to cancel. And I was like, oh, no. We're on the move to canceling the rest of our vacations because that was a big plus. Everyone's like, oh, you'll love this base because you get to travel. And then we couldn't travel. I was like, well, thanks, guys.
Where in Mississippi is it again?
We're in Columbus, so we're in the northeastern part of Mississippi, just out about an hour west of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which people tend to know.
Go Tigers. I went to LSU for my engineering degree, so
no roll tide.
No roll tide here. No. Cool. Yeah, I think it's really, I love your journey of creating your online business to get the freedom to have with your family and to be able to travel and move. Like that is the reason why we all start our own businesses, in my opinion, right, is to get that time freedom. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing is to help people actually achieve their time freedom. So I'm really grateful that you've had the ability to build your family and to have time freedom with your business. So 2021 filing season's coming up.
It is here. They've officially opened on the 12th. So that was 10 days ago. And it's been nothing but chaos. So I was reading this morning some articles, and Congress is mad at the IRS that there aren't more tax filings going on, and all the tax preparers are like, time out. We're waiting on Congress to pass laws. So it has become, probably more unique even than last year's tax filing. So last year we just got delayed, tossed in some credits and stuff, and we're like, okay, we'll deal with it all this year. And now we have to deal with it. So we've got the stimulus payments that you may or may not have received, and those have to be trued up on your tax return. If you took any loans, PPP loans, those are going through your tax return. Of course, we got great news that you get to take the deductions. You don't have to report the income. So it made it all a lot cleaner if you're doing your own bookkeeping and doing your own taxes. It shouldn't kind of bombard you as much that way, which is nice. We've got a second round of PPP loans open, third round. So those are still available, second round. So if you have not gotten money yet, if you still need money, it's out there that your business can go get. And so we're waiting on a few things this year. So if you've got a tax preparer who's like, we don't want to file yet, it's for a couple reasons. We're pretty sure there's another round of stimulus coming. The initial reports were, well, we're going to go ahead and like lower those income limits to get the money out, which was fine. But now it became a game for like no better words here. Because if your 2019 income was below that threshold, then that's the one you want on record so you can get your full stimulus. And if your 2020 would be above, then there's no point in filing until you get your stimulus money. However, if you had a kid in 2020 or anything that would have adjusted, then you wanted to get your income reported right away, and the kid reported right away. So you'd get that, because at this point, we would true up the stimulus next year. So that's a long time to wait if you need the money.
Right.
So there's kind of been that toying. We're also waiting. In the very early days, there was talk that unemployment might have been exempt, and we're waiting to see kind of where they land on that. And a lot of preparers going, I'm not filing amended returns. So we're just going to sit and wait, which is frustrating because there's still money sitting out there for people. They want their refunds. They need that money in their pockets. And we're just kind of in this hot mess of waiting for, again, also potentially a delay in tax filing deadline too. There's now talk going on that maybe we'll push back to July. So it's become just crazy, for the lack of better terms. You can always extend your tax return. Whether you file in March or April, you're always allowed to extend. You just have to be paid in by the March or April 15th deadlines. And so I think that's the piece that they're really trying to help us with by extending those payments until July. But that could be a pretty easy discussion and a pretty easy thing to do. We just need them to be in their seats in Washington doing it. And that's something. They were on vacation last week. So we're hoping this week to see a lot of movement, so that everything I've discussed is like set in stone, ideally by the end of the week, early next week. But if another round of stimulus comes up, they have to, I would imagine, delay tax deadlines, because IRS is going to have to stop what they're doing and switch gears again to get all that money back out. So it's just chaos.
So chaotic. And then like on top of everything externally, right, for online business owners, I feel like we're still in this like space of just figuring out like what taxes even are for online business and in the online business atmosphere. We're all, I mean, you're not, but like on our side, people who are not tax experts or CPAs are definitely like, okay, what, especially for me, I'm a digital nomad. So like, I don't have a home. I'm like traveling in a different state pretty much every month right now. And so it's really interesting of like, okay, I started my business like in 2020, quit my 9 to 5, like traveling everywhere. So I think that on top of all the external circumstances, there's internal circumstances that are individual and unique to each of us. And so, it adds a whole nother layer of like.
It does, even for W-2 employees. So self-employed and W-2, we saw in 2020, a lot of people were like, I don't have to be here in my house. I can go and work somewhere else because we're all remote right now. And
Mm.
that brought in a lot of tax implications. So there's a lot of states that are going to be like, hey, you were in our state for 30, 31 days, which is about, unless you're talking New York, about 30 days is when they start wanting you to report that income. And for you to say, hey, I was working in your state, here's your piece of the pie. Congrats. If it's in New York, it's less than 10 days. So New York is very quick about, hey, we want your money and we want it now. You can expect New York and California to be like, hey, if you've got money, we want it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so other states, most of the time, they've really tried to look at about 30 days being that cutoff as to when you need to say, hey, I was here, here's your piece, 1/12 of your income for that year. Ideally, if you have like the numbers laid out, it is truly what you earned while you were there. So you'd run your profit and losses and be like, hey, I was here from March 15th to April 15th. Here's your money.
Right. Yeah. That's a whole nother thing.
It is.
So for someone who doesn't know taxes, clearly I'm not a tax expert, but like, so what do you tell them? Do you have like a framework or like a, step-by-step type thing, or like how, like what do you tell people when in the online business space about like what to do?
Yeah, we really, depending on where they are, but really you have to have a separate bank account. And for some reason, that seems to be the step that's missed the most. A separate bank account, a separate PayPal that's business only, I'd rather nobody ever used Venmo, but a separate Venmo that's business only if I can't get you away from it. Making sure Stripe is business only. So the sooner you can really divide your life into, this is my personal life and this is my business life, financially, the better off you are. Because anytime you have to sit there and go through a month worth of transactions and be like, was this personal or was this business? You're not going to finish it. I can guarantee that. If you do finish it, you spent way too long doing it because you just couldn't remember. And it's inconvenient at the time. Like if you're going to Target to get stuff for your office and stuff for your home, you need to check out with 2 transactions. Be like, okay, here's my business card, here's my personal, because otherwise you're going to lose money. Because the safer answer is to just disallow all of it and say, sorry, I can't prove what was what. So you're going to go ahead and have to take it all as personal. It's much easier if you just really kind of get yourself disciplined enough early on to be like, business, personal, that's how we're going to operate. Because then you can really go through those transactions pretty fast. And you know that all of that income is business income. You know everything going out is business. And we don't have to play that game either once a month or even worse, come tax season, because you haven't done it all year. And all of your tax preparers are like, yeah, that's great. We're charging you an extra fee to do this bookkeeping because it's March and we've got other things to do. So if the sooner I can get any business owner to really make that very strong line, and it's the new ones, but it's also the clients I've got that are making $250,000 a year. Like it's a very hard thing because it's their money. It's so much different in the brain to sit there and say, well, it has to be transferred. A check has to be written or the actual transfer of cash has to occur, because they're like, no, I earned that money. That is still my money and it's an extension of me. Why can't I just access it to pay for coffee or groceries or dining out tonight? And so just breaking that mental block that they seem to have is tough. And it doesn't matter, I think, the income level, as long as you've got that self-employment, you kind of are like, but it's mine and I want it and I don't want to have to follow the rules to get it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And I think I like took like some sort of quiz or something. I don't even know what I did, but it was something over, when I was starting my business in January of 2020. And it was to basically what you just said. The first thing is just to start a separate bank account. And it was like, I think I had made like $1,000 in my business or something like that. And I put it straight into that bank account. And I was so grateful to have, like, I have a separate account for business. And I put, all the things, everything that I make in that one account. And then you can move things around from there. So I love that that was your first piece of advice, because whoever told me that was great. I don't know.
And you don't have to have an LLC to do it. So I think a lot of people also are on that, like, oh no, I don't have to do it till I have an LLC. No. Like the day you make that first dollar, I really want it. Even if it's expenses, like transferring your personal money into the business account and pay for those initial expenses that way, all of that is so much easier. And if that is simply in your bank that you have personal account and then another account opened that's business, but not classified as a technical business account, you're still doing so much better than so many others.
So what I'm hearing is you don't need a business classified account like with the bank. The bank doesn't need to know that it's a business account, right?
They don't have to. They'll prefer it, and there's protections that come with that. But if you are really on that, like, my job is still kind of like, I've got a W-2. This is kind of my side hustle. I haven't quite made it to the point I want to invest in an LLC and get all of that in order, then just get that separate account. Once you get that LLC, you're going to need that business account. Again, it's for the legal protections, but much rather have that first $100, $1,000 in its own account than to try to separate that out at tax time and be like, oh, right, that was business and this is personal. You can't deduct that, but I can deduct this. And then what happens is the IRS could come back and be like, prove it. And you're like, can't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I love that. That's really great advice. So what would be the next step for even a successful business owner who's like trying to like wrangle all of this bookkeeping, taxes, like type stuff?
it's to really decide where your talents lie. So if you are a person who loves numbers and you can be disciplined and you can get this done, then get yourself a software, something like QuickBooks, that you can hook all of those business accounts into. It automatically pulls those transactions in, and then you just have to classify them. If, however, you're like, yeah, no, you couldn't pay me enough to sit down and do my own books, then it's time to just hire someone. It might hurt a little depending on where you are. Over time, though, you're making money because you're not doing something you don't enjoy. You're getting relatively real-time data because you're getting monthly reports from your bookkeeper. And so you can make better decisions. Ignoring your books for a whole year, no matter where you are in the process, means that you are forever behind on trying to decide if this business is even profitable. Was that thing you launched in June actually worth that time and effort? Or did it draw a loss and you have to reassess? But if you keep doing the same thing, you're not going to know, especially if you're not getting any data.
Right. And I think that you touched on like a couple of things, and I talk a lot about like boundaries, right? Like making sure that you know who you are and your boundaries, and creating like focused boundaries, and making sure that you do devote money or time to money, right? Time in your life, whether it is outsourcing or doing it yourself. But the other thing is what I love what you said about, like, if you do want to hire someone and you get that monthly reports, like it takes that like emotion out of money. You're like, this is like hard facts. And I always, because I'm an engineer, like I love just the hard facts. Like I don't need to wrap up my mindset stuff and like my emotions and all of that in my numbers. And I try hard not to, but I think that is like an additional benefit of when you do hire someone to do that, it would be there for you.
It is. And with my clients, at least when we do this, it's even, this was good, this is how you keep more. So most clients will run in the black, but it'll be kind of the minimal black. They're maybe only keeping 30, 40 cents for every dollar they make. And I think until someone kind of puts that in their face and says, hey, this is what's going on, you're not going to look at it, because you do have these stories around it. And as long as there's something positive coming in, or your goal is to pay as little as possible to the IRS, and you think that the best answer then is to run a business that's not making money, we have to really break through that and be like, no, paying the IRS is a good thing. It means you made money. You want to keep more of your money because that's how you build wealth. If your goal is not to always hustle for that dollar, then these are kind of the things you need to have in place. And there are people who will sit down on Friday night and get joy out of doing their books and seeing those numbers, and there are people who won't. And so it's finding that balance. If your partner will do it for you, then that's great. Look at that free outsource and be like, I will buy you that bottle of alcohol if you'll do my books for me. I do find eventually those break down over time. Whenever you're not paying for something, you're sometimes on the bottom of the to-do list. So I've got many people who are like, I'm married to an accountant. I'm like, okay, but I need you to do my books. I'm like, but you're married to an accountant. They're like, yeah, they won't do my stuff. Okay.
I took my husband's accounting classes for him.
He owes you.
Yeah, he's a content writer, so he does my like copywriting and editing and all of that. So we have a working
You're the number
relationship. But yeah.
Exactly. Oh, that's funny. Hey, my baby woke up. I gotta go grab him real quick.
Yeah, no worries. Awesome. So I know we kind of like already talked a little bit about how to know if you DIY or hire someone, but I wanted to go more into like the hire someone, right? So like what actually is bookkeeping? Like what do you do for your clients? Um, like when you want to hire someone, what are you looking for?
Yeah, everyone in the industry really offers something different. A few things I really recommend using someone stateside or someone in the country you're in because we have tax laws, and a good bookkeeper will understand the tax laws because you got to remember you're keeping your books for the data, you're also keeping your books for the taxes. And so someone who knows how those affect each other will be worth the investment. Um, and so hiring offshore is very hard because they don't necessarily know our tax laws. They might know the accounting piece, and that's fine, but it's always good to know that meals and entertainment right now is 100% deductible because it's just classified differently. Um, so that's part of it. So when we talk bookkeeping, there's a range of I'm simply inputting your data. I'm not going to analyze it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to print you a P&L and send it to you. And then toward my side is more I'm going to look at the data. I'm going to look at past. I'm going to kind of talk to you about where you think you're going. And we're going to really look at what changes might need to be made. And you're going to get some advice along with that data because it just works. It works better from what I can tell, as opposed to just providing it. Because if you just provide the data, they don't always know what to do with it. And so what does it mean to you if I tell you, hey, your net profit percentage is 60% if I don't explain it? And so there's always an education aspect to it too. And so I highly recommend looking for someone that will educate you along the way.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving us all this amazing information and for Jameson coming on here and saying hello. And yeah, like where if someone wanted to work with you after this tax season, where would they find you? Where is some more information?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Caitlynn Eldridge. And there's kind of two ways right now. One is the CFO package where we do all of your bookkeeping and the analyzing. The other is a CPA hour, which is a kind of low cost membership. It's for those who can't quite outsource, but want to be held accountable every month and want a place to show up to ask questions. And that we meet the second Tuesday of the month, and then there's a Facebook group that goes with it. So yeah, I can answer those questions because that's what I find. You lose the momentum when you start something and you have a question and you don't know where to go to ask it. That's usually when my clients used to close their books and be done with it, and they're like, well, I'm not bothering anymore.
Yeah.
So we're trying to like prevent that.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us today. I learned a lot. It was really great. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.